The sun was setting behind the towering trees of Georgia as we parked our car at the edge of the forest. My friends and I were buzzing with excitement, the thrill of adventure coursing through our veins. We had planned this camping trip for weeks, eager to escape the chaos of our daily lives and embrace the serenity of nature. Little did we know, the woods harbored more than just tranquil beauty. They were steeped in an unsettling history that as we set up our campsite, the sounds of the forest enveloped us. The rustling leaves, the distant call of birds, and the crackling of the campfire. We laughed and joked, the warmth of the fire casting flickering shadows that danced along the trees. I felt a sense of camaraderie, a bond forged through shared experiences, but there was an undercurrent of unease that I couldn't shake. The deeper we ventured into the woods, the more I felt an invisible gaze upon us. As darkness fell, we gathered around the fire, the flickering flames providing a fragile barrier against the encroaching night. We shared stories and roasted marshmallows, but as the laughter faded, I noticed that the forest had grown eerily silent. The usual chorus of nocturnal creatures had vanished, leaving only the crackling of the fire and the sound of our own voices. It was as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees, sending a chill down my spine. My heart raced as I exchanged nervous glances with my friends. "It's probably just a deer," I said, trying to sound brave, but deep down, I felt a primal instinct to flee. We resumed our laughter, but the unease lingered, an ominous shadow hanging over us. The woods felt alive, and I could sense that we were not alone. As the night wore on, we decided to play a game to lighten the mood. We ventured deeper into the woods, flashlights in hand, challenging each other to see who could stay the longest in the dark. As we moved away from the campfire, the shadows deepened, and the trees loomed like sentinels, watching our every move. I felt a sense of foreboding creep in, a whisper in the back of my mind urging me to turn back. But the thrill of the game pushed us forward, and we stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. It was beautiful, a serene oasis in the heart of the forest. We decided to catch our breath and take in a moment. But as we stood there, the low growl returned, closer this time. Panic surged through me, and I felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The growl reverberated through the clearing, a sound both primal and menacing. My friends fell silent, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear and disbelief. I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. We were no longer playing a game. We were intruders in a territory we didn't understand. As the darkness closed in around us, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. We needed to get back to the campsite, but the fear of turning our backs on the unknown kept us frozen in place. Just then, a rustle in the underbrush sent my heart racing. We turned our flashlights toward the sound, illuminating the dense foliage. My breath caught in my throat as I caught a glimpse of a hulking figure lurking in the shadows. Its eyes glinted in the light, reflecting an intelligence that sent shivers down my spine. It was a wolf, larger than any I had ever seen, its fur matted and wild. I could feel the primal instinct to run, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. "Let's go," Mark shouted, breaking the spell that held us captive. We turned to sprint back to the campsite, but the wolf was faster. It lunged from the shadows, a blur of fur and teeth, and I felt a surge of terror that eclipsed all rational thought. We ran through the trees, the underbrush tearing at our clothes, the sound of the wolf's growls echoing behind us. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins as we raced against the primal instinct to survive. We burst back into the clearing where our campsite was located, but the fire had dwindled to embers. The darkness felt thicker now, closing in around us like a shroud. I could hear the wolf panting, its breath heavy and labored. It was toying with us, enjoying our fear. We huddled together, our flashlights flickering, casting long, jittering shadows that seemed to mock our desperation. I could see the fear etched on my friends' faces, and I knew we were in over our heads. "Do we have any weapons?" Jenna asked, her voice trembling. We frantically searched our bags, finding only a few flimsy camping tools. I grabbed a heavy flashlight, the only thing that felt remotely like a weapon. The growling grew louder, echoing through the trees. I could feel the wolf's presence closing in, a predator stalking its prey. We needed a plan, but panic had taken hold of our minds, blurring our ability to think rationally. Just as I began to formulate a strategy, the wolf emerged from the shadows, its eyes locked onto mine. It was a terrifying sight, a creature born of nightmares. I could see the muscles rippling beneath its fur, the sharp teeth bared in a snarl. Fear gripped me, and I felt the urge to run again, but I stood my ground, fueled by the instinct to protect my friends. The wolf circled us, its growls low and threatening, testing the boundaries of our resolve. Back away slowly, I yelled, my voice cracking with fear. We formed a loose circle, keeping the wolf in sight. But as we slowly retreated, I could see the hunger in its eyes, a primal instinct that recognized us as prey. I felt a surge of panic, the realization that we were in a deadly game of survival. With every step we took, the wolf's confidence grew, and I knew we needed to act fast if we were to escape. The darkness seemed to close in around us, the trees towering like giants, blocking out the moonlight. I could feel the weight of the wolf's gaze, its eyes burning into my soul. What do we do? Mark whispered, his voice trembling with fear. I could sense the panic rising in the group, a collective realization that we were at the mercy of a creature driven by instinct and hunger. In a moment of desperation, I shouted, "We need to make noise. Scare it away." We began to shout and bang our flashlights together, the sounds echoing through the trees. The wolf hesitated, its ears twitching, but it quickly regained its composure, growling low and menacingly. It was clear that our attempts to intimidate it were futile. The wolf was unfazed, its primal instincts overriding our feeble efforts that I could feel my heart racing, the adrenaline pumping through my veins. We needed to create a distraction or find a way to escape. I glanced at the direction of our car, the only semblance of safety in this nightmare. We should make a run for it, I urged, and my friends nodded, fear etched on their faces. But as we turned to sprint, the wolf lunged forward, its teeth snapping dangerously close to my leg that I barely managed to dodge its attack. Adrenaline surging through me as I bolted in the opposite direction. The wolf was relentless, pursuing me with a speed that seemed almost supernatural. I could hear my friends' screams behind me, each cry echoing my own panic. The woods blurred around me, the trees becoming mere shadows as I raced through the darkness, guided only by instinct and sheer terror. As I ran, I stumbled over a root, crashing to the ground. Pain shot through my ankle, but I pushed myself up, knowing that stopping meant certain death. I could hear the wolf's growls growing louder, feel its breath hot on my neck. I had to keep moving. I glanced back, catching a glimpse of the creature, its eyes gleaming with a feral hunger. It was gaining on me, and I knew I had to find a way to outsmart it. Thinking quickly, I veered off the path and scrambled up a small hill, hoping to put some distance between us. The wolf followed, its growls echoing through the trees, a haunting reminder of the predator behind me. I reached the top, breathless and desperate, and spotted a thick tree branch lying nearby. Grabbing it, I turned to face my pursuer, adrenaline fueling my resolve. The wolf emerged from the shadows, its eyes locked onto mine. I raised the branch, ready to defend myself, but in that moment, I realized the gravity of our situation. We had trespassed into its territory, and it was merely protecting its domain. The primal instinct to survive surged within me, and I knew I had to confront this creature if I wanted to save myself and my friends. Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel for more chilling stories like this. Your support keeps the nightmares alive. The wolf stared at me, its growl reverberating through the still night air. I felt a mixture of fear and adrenaline coursing through my veins, my grip tightening around the branch. As the creature lunged, I swung the branch with all my strength, but it dodged effortlessly, its movements fluid and graceful. I could feel the weight of desperation settling in. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a confrontation with a primal force of nature. With each passing moment, the realization dawned on me. We were in a battle not just against the wolf, but against our own fears and instincts. I could hear my friends shouting from a distance, their voices mingling with the growl of the wolf. I had to make a choice. Either confront this creature head-on or retreat into the darkness, abandoning my friends. The thought of leaving them behind ignited a fire within me. As the wolf lunged again, I took a deep breath and sidestepped, swinging the branch with all my might. This time, I struck true, the branch hitting the side of its head. The wolf yelped in surprise, stumbling back. I seized the moment, shouting for my friends to regroup and make a stand. "We need to fight together," I called, my voice rising above the chaos. They emerged from the shadows, rallying around me, their faces painted with fear and determination. We formed a circle, flashlights and makeshift weapons ready. The wolf, realizing it was outnumbered, circled us, its growls rising in pitch. I could see the glint of its teeth, the ferocity in its eyes, but we were no longer just prey. We were a united front, ready to confront the nightmare together. Slowly, we began to back away, inching toward the path that led back to our car. The wolf hesitated, its instincts battling with the realization that we were not an easy target. I felt a surge of hope as we moved in unison, each step bringing us closer to safety. But just as we thought we had gained the upper hand, the wolf lunged one last time, its powerful body crashing into Mark. Chaos erupted. We shouted, panic rising as we rushed to help him. My heart raced as I fought against the fear threatening to overwhelm me. Mark was on the ground, struggling against the wolf, but I couldn't let it end this way. I grabbed the branch again, swinging it with every ounce of strength I had left, and struck the wolf with a primal scream. The creature yelped, momentarily stunned, and we seized the moment to pull Mark away. Together, we fled down the path, the sound of the wolf's growls fading into the distance. We didn't stop running until we reached our car, breathless and terrified, the weight of what had just transpired settling over us like a heavy fog. As we drove away from that cursed forest, the reality of the night's events hit us like a tidal wave. We had faced a nightmare and emerged, but the scars would remain, both physical and emotional. Mark was injured, but we had survived. The woods held secrets we would never fully understand, and I knew that the darkness we had encountered would haunt our memories forever. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that night lingered like a shadow in my mind. We tried to go back to our normal lives, but the experience had changed us. Mark bore the physical scars of the encounter, but we all carried emotional wounds that ran deep. Every rustle in the trees, every howl of the wind sent shivers down my spine, reminding me of the primal fear we had faced. And I found myself waking in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the echoes of that growl still ringing in my ears. It was a constant reminder of our brush with death, a haunting that would never fully fade. We had ventured into the unknown, and the woods had shown us their true nature, a raw, untamed power that demanded respect. In the end, we learned that nature is not just beautiful, it is wild and unpredictable. We had trespassed into a realm that was not ours, and the consequences were dire. I often thought about the wolf, its eyes glinting with a primal intelligence. It was a reminder that we are not at the top of the food chain. We are merely players in a game far older than ourselves. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. I encourage you to share your own fears and experiences with the wild. What lies beyond the safety of our homes? Let's explore these chilling questions together, for the nightmare never truly ends. The air was thick with humidity as I waited in the dimly lit living room of our old Louisiana home. My parents had promised me a fun night with a new babysitter, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in my stomach. The ceiling fan stirred the hot air around me, casting flickering shadows that danced on the walls like ghosts. My excitement ebbed away, replaced by a creeping sense of dread as the clock ticked closer to the hour. When she finally arrived, I was taken aback by her appearance. The babysitter, a girl named Clara, was older than I expected, maybe in her late teens. She wore a long, flowing dress that seemed out of place in the sweltering heat, and her hair hung in loose curls that framed her face. Her smile was wide, almost too wide, and when she spoke, her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Hi there. You must be excited for our night together." I nodded, but something about her made me uneasy. She seemed too eager, too cheerful, and I couldn't help but feel that she was hiding something behind her bright smile. As she settled into the couch, I could see her eyes darting around the room, as if she were taking in every detail. I tried to shake off my discomfort, reminding myself that she was just a babysitter. But the feeling lingered, like a shadow at the corner of my mind. Clara suggested we play a game, and I reluctantly agreed. We started with a board game, but her laughter felt hollow, echoing through the house in a way that sent chills down my spine. She was overly enthusiastic, her reactions exaggerated, and I couldn't help but feel that she was performing for an audience that wasn't there. Each time she smiled, it felt as though she was trying too hard, as if she were hiding something beneath the surface. After a while, she suggested we move on to watching a movie. "Let's set the mood," Clara said, rising from the couch to dim the lights. I watched as she moved about the room, her movements fluid yet unsettling. The flickering light cast strange shadows on her face, making her look almost otherworldly. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a primal instinct urging me to be cautious that I try to focus on the movie, but I found myself glancing at Clara more often than not. She seemed entranced by the screen, her eyes wide and unblinking. I could feel the tension building in the room, an invisible weight pressing down on me. Suddenly, she turned to me, her expression shifting from delight to something darker. "Do you believe in ghosts?" she asked, her voice low and conspiratorial. My heart raced as I felt a chill creep up my spine. Her question hung in the air, thick with an unsettling energy. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Not really," I replied, forcing a laugh, but Clara's gaze pinned me to the spot. "You should. This house has a lot of stories." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt the weight of the room shift. It was as if the walls themselves were listening, holding their breath in anticipation of what was to come. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a legend about a little girl who used to live here. They say she roams the halls at night, looking for someone to play with." My heart raced, and I instinctively glanced around the darkened room. The shadows seemed to twist and turn, and I felt the air grow colder. "That's just a story," I insisted, but Clara's smile only widened, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite place that as the movie played on, I felt increasingly unnerved. Clara's laughter rang out at odd moments, her reactions not matching the scenes on the screen. I could sense her attention shifting, her focus drawn away from the film and onto me. "What's wrong?" she asked suddenly, her tone shifting from playful to serious. "You look scared." I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "I'm fine," I lied, but I could feel the tension in my chest tightening. Clara stood up abruptly, her expression transforming into something darker. "Let's play a different game," she said, her voice low and melodic, almost hypnotic. "I know a fun way to summon the spirits." My heart dropped as I realized what she meant. "No, let's just watch the movie," I pleaded, but she only smiled again, a smile that sent chills coursing through my veins. Before I could protest, Clara pulled out a small, old-looking Ouija board from her bag. "It's just a game," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Don't you want to see if the little girl wants to play?" I felt a surge of panic at the thought. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said, my voice shaking. But Clara was already setting it up, her movements deliberate and smooth as she arranged the board on the coffee table. I felt the air grow thick with tension. I wanted to run, to escape the suffocating atmosphere she had created, but I was frozen in place. Clara's excitement was palpable, her eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. "Come on, it'll be fun," she insisted, her voice almost sing-song. Reluctantly, I joined her, my heart racing with every passing second. Once we were seated, Clara instructed me to place my fingers on the planchette. "Just let it guide you," she said, her voice dripping with anticipation. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I hesitated, but I did as she said. The board felt cold beneath my fingers, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Is anyone there?" Clara asked, her voice low and eerie. The planchette began to move, gliding across the board as if guided by an unseen hand. I felt a rush of fear, my instincts screaming at me to stop. But Clara was entranced, her eyes wide with excitement. "Look, it's working," she exclaimed, her laughter echoing off the walls. I wanted to pull my hands away, to break the connection, but something held me there, a mixture of fear and curiosity binding me to the board. That as the planchette continued to move, spelling out vague responses, the room felt charged with energy. "What's your name?" Clara asked, her voice barely a whisper. The planchette glided to spell L-I-L-Y. A chill ran down my spine as I felt the atmosphere shift dramatically. Clara's smile widened, but there was something unsettling in her eyes, a glimmer of madness that sent a wave of dread coursing through me. "Lily is here with us," Clara said, her voice dripping with excitement. I wanted to tell her to stop, to put an end to this madness, but my voice caught in my throat. The shadows in the room seemed to deepen, the air growing colder as I felt an unseen presence envelop us. I glanced around nervously, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "What do you want?" Clara asked, her voice trembling with anticipation. The planchette moved again, spelling out P-L-A-Y. I felt a surge of fear, the weight of something dark pressing down on me. Clara's eyes sparkled with delight, but I could sense the underlying danger. I wanted to break the connection, to escape the suffocating presence that was closing in around us. "We shouldn't be doing this," I finally managed to say, my voice wavering. "Don't be such a baby," Clara snapped, her expression shifting suddenly. "Lily just wants to play." The change in her demeanor sent a jolt of fear through me. It was as if a mask had slipped, revealing something sinister beneath. The laughter that had once filled the room now felt hollow, echoing in a way that made my skin crawl. I could feel the energy shifting, darkening, and I knew we were crossing a line we couldn't uncross. "Let's ask her something else," Clara said, her voice now low and conspiratorial. "How did you die, Lily?" The planchette moved again, spelling out F-I-R-E. My heart sank as the shadows in the room seemed to pulse with life, the atmosphere thickening with an oppressive weight. Clara's gaze was locked onto the board, her eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and excitement. "Did you burn in this house?" she pressed, her voice barely above a whisper. The planchette moved once more, spelling out Y-E-S. A cold wave washed over me, and the room felt like it was closing in. I could feel the darkness wrapping around us, a tightening grip that left me gasping for breath. Panic surged within me, and I felt the urge to flee. "Clara, we need to stop," I shouted, but her eyes were wide, lost in a trance. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in, suffocating and heavy. Clara's laughter echoed in the darkness, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "She's here," she exclaimed, her voice laced with excitement and fear. I felt the urge to scream, to break the hold this nightmare had over us, but I was frozen in terror. When the lights flickered back on, Clara's demeanor had shifted completely. Her smile was gone, replaced by a blank stare. "Lily wants to play," she murmured, her voice distant and hollow. I felt a surge of panic as I realized that the babysitter I had known was slipping away, replaced by something darker. The atmosphere shifted again, and I could feel the presence in the room growing stronger, more insistent that I stood frozen, my heart racing as I desperately tried to comprehend what was happening. Clara's eyes were vacant, as if she were no longer in control of her own body. The room felt charged with energy, a malevolence that clung to the walls like a thick fog. "Clara!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. "Snap out of it!" But her expression remained unchanged, and the shadows seemed to pulse around us. "Lily wants to play," she repeated, her voice distant and eerie. I felt a cold chill creep up my spine as I realized that we were no longer alone. The air had grown thick with an unseen presence, and I could sense it watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. That in a moment of desperation, I grabbed the Ouija board, ready to throw it away, but Clara's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "Don't," she hissed, her eyes flaring with a wild intensity. "We have to finish." I felt a surge of fear, my instincts screaming at me to escape. It was as if she was no longer the babysitter I had met, but something else entirely. "Lily is angry," Clara shouted, her voice rising in pitch. "She wants to play. You can't leave." I fought against her grip, but it was like trying to break free from a vice. The shadows danced around us, and I felt the air grow colder, the weight of the darkness pressing down on my chest. I had to get out of there. I had to break this connection before it was too late. With a surge of adrenaline, I yanked my arm free and bolted for the door. "Clara, please," I begged, but she was lost in a trance, her eyes locked on the board. I fumbled for the doorknob, panic surging as I heard her laughter echo behind me, a chilling sound that sent shivers coursing through my body. I felt the darkness closing in, a suffocating presence that threatened to consume me. Just as I burst through the door, Clara screamed, "You can't leave me!" The sound echoed through the house, and I felt a wave of terror wash over me. I raced down the hallway, desperate to escape the nightmare that had unfolded. My heart pounded in my chest as I stumbled into the living room, the oppressive darkness following close behind. But as I reached the front door, I paused, glancing back toward the hallway. Clara stood there, her figure silhouetted against the dim light, her expression twisted into something unrecognizable. "You can't leave," she shouted, her voice now hollow and echoing in a way that sent chills down my spine. I felt a primal instinct surge within me, urging me to flee. That I burst outside into the humid night air, gasping for breath as I stumbled onto the porch. The oppressive weight of the house fell away, and I felt a rush of relief wash over me. But as I looked back, I could still see Clara standing in the doorway, her expression a haunting reminder of the darkness we had awakened. I knew I had to leave, to escape the nightmare that had taken hold. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that night haunted me like a lingering shadow. I tried to forget, to push it away, but the echoes of Clara's laughter and the darkness that had enveloped us remained etched in my mind. I would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the fear still fresh in my mind that I never saw Clara again, and I often wondered what had happened to her. The house felt different after that night, as if it had absorbed the darkness we had unleashed. I could sense the whispers in the walls, the shadows shifting in the corners of my vision. It was a constant reminder that the things we play with can take on a life of their own, and some doors should never be opened. As I grew older, I realized that the line between reality and the supernatural is often blurred. The fear I felt that night stayed with me, a constant companion that reminded me of the dangers lurking just beneath the surface. I knew that the darkness we had encountered was not just a figment of my imagination. It was real, and it had marked me in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. I encourage you to share your own fears and experiences with the supernatural. What lies beyond the veil of our reality? Let's explore these chilling questions together, for the nightmare never truly ends. The Texas sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty rooms of my family home. I had been looking forward to a quiet weekend alone, relishing the opportunity to escape the noise of the city. As I settled onto the couch, the familiar creaks of the old house welcomed me back like an old friend. But as night fell, an unsettling feeling began to creep in, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. That I turned on the television, the flickering light pushing back the encroaching darkness. The sound of static filled the room, blending with the occasional rustle of the wind outside. Everything felt normal at first, but the stillness of the house began to weigh on my mind. I glanced around, half expecting to see a familiar figure in the doorway, But the emptiness echoed back at me that as the hours passed. I felt the air grow thick with tension. Strange noises began to punctuate the silence. A soft thump from upstairs, a whispering sound that seemed to drift through the halls. I shook my head, trying to dismiss them as figments of my imagination. After all, I had spent countless nights alone in this house, and nothing ever happened. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Deciding to distract myself, I wandered into the kitchen to make a snack. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow that illuminated the room. As I rummaged through the cabinets, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps above me. My heart raced, and I froze, straining to hear. Surely, it was just the house settling, I thought, but a knot tightened in my stomach that I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but curiosity got the better of me. With a hesitant breath, I made my way to the stairs. Each creak of the old wood amplifying my anxiety. The hallway upstairs was dark, the shadows stretching ominously across the walls. I reached for the light switch, my hand trembling as I flicked it on, illuminating the space with a dull glow. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but the feeling of unease lingered like a thick fog that as I turned to head back downstairs. I noticed my bedroom door slightly ajar. It had been closed when I left. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt an instinctual urge to retreat. But I couldn't let fear take control. I pushed the door open slowly, peering inside. The room was empty, the bed perfectly made, but a strange sensation washed over me, as if the air itself had shifted. Trying to shake off the unease, I returned to the living room, where I settled back onto the couch. I turned the television back on, but the images flickered and faded, replaced by static. Frustrated, I grabbed the remote and pressed the buttons, but nothing changed. It was as if the house had decided to turn against me, plunging me into an unsettling silence. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the kitchen, making me jump. My heart raced as I bolted up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Was it just the wind? A pipe bursting? I took a deep breath, steadying myself before moving cautiously toward the kitchen. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, my pulse quickening with every creak of the floorboards beneath me. When I reached the kitchen, I was met with an unsettling sight. The cabinet doors were swinging open and closed, as if an unseen force was playing with them. I stared, frozen in disbelief, my instincts screaming at me to leave. I stepped back, barely able to breathe, when suddenly the doors slammed shut with a deafening noise. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. What the hell? I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. I needed to get a grip. I thought of calling someone, but the isolation of the house felt suffocating. My phone sat on the couch, and I hesitated. Instead, I forced myself to stand tall and confront whatever was happening. It's just your imagination, I muttered, trying to convince myself as I took a tentative step forward. But as I turned to leave the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye, a shadow darting past the window. My heart raced as I rushed to the glass, peering out into the darkness. The yard was empty, the moon casting eerie shadows across the ground. I felt a chill creep up my spine, a sense that something was lurking just beyond my vision, waiting for me to let my guard down. The air felt heavier as I returned to the living room, and I could hear faint whispers echoing through the halls. They were soft, almost melodic, but laced with an underlying menace. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, a primal fear urging me to escape. I grabbed my phone, finally deciding to reach out to a friend. As I typed a message, the lights flickered ominously, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. Panic surged through me, and I glanced around, feeling the shadows close in. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, drowning out my thoughts. My phone buzzed, and I jumped, nearly dropping it. The screen lit up, but the message was from an unknown number. Asterisk, are you alone? Asterisk, it read. My heart raced as I stared at the screen, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. I felt the oppressive weight of the house closing in, the shadows whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear that I forced myself to breathe, struggling to remain calm as the words on my phone blurred in and out of focus. "Who is this?" I typed back, my fingers shaking. The response came almost instantly. Asterisk, you shouldn't be alone. Asterisk, a chill ran through me, and I could feel the room spinning. I glanced around, the shadows now feeling like living entities, creeping closer with each passing moment. Before I could compose myself, I heard a soft giggle echoing from the hallway. My blood ran cold as I turned to face the darkness. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. No response, just the oppressive silence that followed. I clutched my phone tighter, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the presence around me, the weight of something sinister lurking just beyond the edges of my perception. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to swirl around me. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall as I fought to comprehend what was happening. "This isn't real," I chanted, closing my eyes tightly. "You're just imagining things." But deep down, I could feel the truth clawing at my mind. This was no ordinary night alone. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging me into darkness. I felt a rush of cold air, and the whispers became a haunting chorus. "Asterisk, help us, asterisk," they echoed, 1,000 voices mingling into one. Terrified, I opened my eyes just as the lights returned, revealing a figure standing at the end of the hallway, a shadowy silhouette shrouded in darkness that I couldn't move, my body frozen in fear. The figure remained still, its presence suffocating as the air thickened. "Get away from me!" I screamed, the words tearing from my throat as I bolted toward the front door. I flung it open, the cool night air hitting my face like a splash of water. I stumbled outside, gasping for breath, the oppressive weight of the house finally lifting. But the night was far from safe. I turned to look back at the house, my heart racing as I felt the cold tug of fear wrap around me again. The windows were dark, but I could sense something watching me from within. The whispers had faded, but the lingering sense of dread remained, a reminder that I was not alone. That I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but the screen went dark. Panic surged through me as I realized I was cut off from the outside world. I stood there, heart racing, trying to figure out my next move. The house loomed behind me, its dark windows like eyes watching my every move, and I knew I couldn't go back inside. That I took a few steps away from the house, scanning the area for any sign of life. The night was eerily quiet, the only sound being the rustling of leaves in the breeze. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in around me, and I knew I had to get away. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape the malevolent presence that haunted the halls of my family home. With no other option, I started walking down the gravel road leading away from the house. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver light that illuminated my path. I felt a mixture of fear and relief, each step taking me further away from the terror that had gripped me. But as I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. The whispers returned, faint at first but growing louder as I moved. "Asterisk, come back!" Asterisk, they beckoned, a chilling echo that sent shivers down my spine. I quickened my pace, the shadows at the edge of the road seeming to reach for me. I could feel the darkness clawing at my back, urging me to return to the house, to face whatever horrors awaited inside. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my heart racing as I glanced at the screen. The same unknown number had messaged me again. "Asterisk, you can't escape." Asterisk, a wave of panic washed over me, and I looked back at the house, its silhouette stark against the night sky. The figure I had seen earlier loomed in the window, watching me with a predatory gaze. "Leave me alone!" I shouted into the night, my voice trembling with fear. I turned and ran, sprinting down the gravel road with every ounce of strength I had left. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind with a cacophony of voices that threatened to drown me. I could feel the darkness closing in, and I pushed myself harder, desperate to escape. That I didn't stop running until I reached the nearest neighbor's house, pounding on the door with frantic urgency. I could hear the faint sounds of movement inside, but no one answered. The darkness felt alive behind me, and I turned to look back at the house one last time. The lights flickered, shadows dancing in the windows, and I knew I had to get out of there. As I stood there, heart racing, I realized that the scars of that night would never truly fade. The darkness I had encountered was now a part of me, a haunting reminder of the terror that had unfolded in that house. I could feel the weight of the whispers lingering in my mind, a constant echo of the unknown that would follow me wherever I went. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night haunted me like a shadow. I tried to return to normalcy, but every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights sent me spiraling back into that moment of terror. I could still hear the whispers, the echoes of the voices that had reached out to me from the darkness, that I eventually learned that my family's house had a history, a dark past that had remained hidden behind closed doors. The stories of the previous inhabitants, their tragedies and misfortunes, whispered through the community like a chilling breeze. I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness I had faced was tied to those who had come before me, a lingering presence that would never truly let go. As I lay in bed at night, the memories flooded back, the feeling of being watched, the whispers calling me back. I knew I could never return to that house, never face the darkness that lurked within. The scars ran deep, a constant reminder that some places hold secrets too dangerous to uncover. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. I encourage you to share your own fears and experiences with the darkness. What lies beyond the veil of our reality? Let's explore these chilling questions together, for the nightmare never truly ends. Sun hung low in the sky as our school bus roared down the winding roads of Massachusetts, laughter and excitement filling the air. We were on a field trip to a historical site, a chance to escape the mundane routine of classes and embark on an adventure. The atmosphere was electric, a buzz of youthful energy reverberating through the bus as we shared stories and jokes. Little did we know, our journey would take a dark turn that as we drove deeper into the woods, the trees thickened around us, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The bus bounced along the uneven road, and the chatter gradually faded as the landscape transformed into an eerie stillness. The driver, Mr. Thompson, a grizzled man with a penchant for ghost stories, seemed increasingly uneasy. I caught him glancing into the rearview mirror, his brow furrowed in concern. Suddenly, the bus lurched violently, and a loud clunk echoed from beneath us. The engine sputtered and died, plunging us into an unsettling silence. What just happened? Sarah, one of my classmates, asked, her voice quivering. Mr. Thompson tried to restart the engine, but nothing happened. Panic began to ripple through the bus as we realized we were stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dark, foreboding woods. Stay calm, everyone, Mr. Thompson said, attempting to reassure us. I'll call for help. He pulled out his phone, but it flickered with no service. The realization hit me like a cold wave. No cell signal, no way to call for help. The laughter that had once filled the bus was replaced by anxious whispers and nervous glances. The weight of isolation settled over us, thick and suffocating that as the minutes turned into what felt like hours, a sense of unease began to creep in. The woods were alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the occasional snap of a twig. I could sense the tension building among my classmates, a shared anxiety that hung in the air like a storm cloud. What if we're stuck here all night? I heard someone whisper, and a chill ran down my spine. Mr. Thompson finally decided to investigate. Stay put, he instructed, giving us a stern look. I'll see if I can flag down a passing car. As he stepped off the bus, a murmur of concern rippled through us. We watched him walk toward the road, the trees swallowing him in shadows. The bus felt smaller, more confining, as the reality of our situation began to sink in. The minutes stretched on, and unease turned into outright anxiety. The bus was filled with restless energy, students fidgeting in their seats, casting glances outside as the darkness deepened. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. It was as if the woods were watching us, whispering secrets that we couldn't quite hear. What's taking him so long? Someone muttered, and I felt the tension rise. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Thompson returned, his face pale and drawn. "There's no one out there," he said, his voice low. "We're going to have to wait for help." A collective groan filled the bus, and the reality of our situation began to settle over us like a heavy fog. The thought of being stranded in the middle of the woods, cut off from the world, was terrifying. "I'm hungry," Sarah said, breaking the silence. She rummaged through her backpack, pulling out a granola bar. We all followed suit, snacking nervously as we tried to distract ourselves from the growing sense of dread. But the darkness outside seemed to encroach upon us, the shadows creeping closer as the night deepened. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the back of the bus, making us jump. "What was that?" I exclaimed, fear coursing through me. We turned to see a window had rattled violently, though we were all seated. "It's just the wind," someone suggested, but I could see the fear in their eyes. The atmosphere had shifted, and we were no longer just a group of friends. We were prey, trapped in a predator's domain. That as the night wore on, strange occurrences began to unfold. The lights inside the bus flickered ominously, plunging us into darkness before flickering back to life. Shadows danced along the walls, and I could swear I saw figures flitting just beyond the windows. Every sound seemed amplified in the stillness. The rustling of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl, the pounding of my heart. "Let's play a game to pass the time," someone suggested, trying to lighten the mood. "How about truth or dare?" We reluctantly agreed, hoping to distract ourselves from the encroaching fear. But as the game progressed, the dares grew bolder, the truths more revealing. With each round, the tension in the bus thickened, as if the very air was charged with energy. When it was my turn, I chose truth. "What's your biggest fear?" Sarah asked, her eyes gleaming with mischief. I hesitated, the weight of the question hanging in the air. Being trapped, I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The moment I spoke, a chilling breeze swept through the bus, and the lights flickered again. A sense of foreboding settled over us, and I felt the shadows grow deeper, more menacing. As the game continued, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The laughter faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to engulf us. I glanced around the bus, the faces of my classmates illuminated by the dim light, but they all wore expressions of unease. The shadows seemed to pulse, as if alive, and I could feel a weight pressing down on us. Suddenly, the bus jolted violently, throwing us against our seats. Panic erupted as we clutched the edges, fear etched on our faces. "What was that?" someone screamed, and I felt my heart race. The lights flickered again, and for a brief moment, the bus was plunged into darkness. I could hear whispers rising from the shadows, a cacophony of voices that sent chills racing down my spine. When the lights returned, I saw a movement outside the bus, dark figures darting between the trees. "Did you see that?" I exclaimed, my voice trembling. "There's something out there." My classmates turned to look, their faces pale with fear. The whispers grew louder, swirling around us, filling the air with an unsettling energy. "We need to get out of here," someone shouted, but panic held us captive. "Stay calm," Mr. Thompson yelled, trying to regain control. "We need to stay inside the bus." But the shadows outside seemed to press closer, and I could feel the darkness closing in on us. The whispers morphed into haunting cries, echoing through the night. "Help us," they begged, a chorus of sorrow that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, I felt a primal fear take hold. I wanted to scream, to break free from the suffocating darkness, but I was frozen in place. The bus felt like a coffin, trapping us inside as the shadows danced around us. I glanced at my friends, their faces etched with terror, and I realized that we were not just lost. We were being hunted. Suddenly, the bus lurched again, and I heard the unmistakable sound of scratching against the metal. "What's happening?" I shouted, my voice rising in panic. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, as if something was trying to claw its way inside. I could feel the walls closing in, the weight of the darkness pressing down on us, and I knew we had to escape. "Out the back," someone yelled, and we scrambled to the emergency exit, desperate to escape the encroaching shadows. We flung the door open, and a rush of cold air hit us like a wall. The forest loomed around us, dark and foreboding, but there was no time to hesitate. We tumbled out of the bus, hearts pounding, adrenaline coursing through our veins. As we stumbled into the woods, the darkness enveloped us, the trees looming like giants in the night. I could hear the whispers growing louder behind us, a cacophony of voices urging us to return. "We have to keep moving," I shouted, and we ran blindly through the underbrush, branches clawing at our clothes and skin. The forest felt alive, the shadows stretching and shifting as if they were reaching for us. I could hear the whispers echoing in my ears, growing more frantic as we pressed deeper into the trees. "Help us!" they cried, and I felt a chill race down my spine. We were lost, separated from the safety of the bus, and the darkness was closing in. "Where do we go?" Sarah gasped, her voice filled with panic. I had no answer. The woods felt like a labyrinth, and I could sense the shadows lurking just beyond our sight. "We need to find a road," I urged, desperation clawing at my throat. We pushed forward, the fear propelling us, but the whispers swirled around us, growing louder and more insistent. Just when I thought we might find a way out, the ground beneath us shifted. I stumbled, falling to my knees, and the others quickly turned to help me up. But as I glanced back, I saw a figure emerge from the shadows, a dark silhouette with eyes that glinted like stars in the night. The whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts as I felt the weight of its gaze upon me. "Run!" I screamed, adrenaline surging through me as panic took hold. We dashed through the trees, the darkness closing in behind us. I could hear the figure moving, its footsteps echoing through the forest, relentless and haunting. We pushed ourselves harder, fear driving us forward, but the shadows seemed to stretch and shift, leading us deeper into the unknown. Finally, we burst through the trees and onto a dirt road, gasping for breath. The moonlight illuminated the path ahead, and I felt a surge of hope. But as we turned to look back, the darkness had receded, leaving only silence in its wake. The whispers faded, but the fear lingered, a chilling reminder of what we had just escaped. "Where's Mr. Thompson?" someone asked, panic rising anew. We looked around, realizing he was nowhere to be found. The weight of dread settled over us as we realized we were still not safe. The woods held secrets we couldn't comprehend, and the shadows would always be watching. The bus was finally found the next morning, abandoned on the roadside, but the memories of that night haunted us long after we returned home. We tried to explain what happened, but no one believed us. Our classmates dismissed it as mere imagination, a product of fear and isolation. But I knew the truth. The darkness we encountered was real, and it had left its mark on our souls that as the years passed. I often found myself looking over my shoulder, haunted by the whispers that still echoed in my mind. The woods of Massachusetts held secrets, and I knew that one day I would have to face them again. The memories of that night became a part of me, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the light. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. I encourage you to share your own fears and experiences with the unseen. What lies beyond the veil of our reality? Let's explore these chilling questions together, for the nightmare never truly ends. The neon sign flickered outside the dusty window of the motel, casting an eerie glow across the room. I had spent the last few days counting down to this moment, an escape from reality with Mia, the woman who had ignited a fire in my heart despite the chaos it brought. As I stepped inside, the musty air wrapped around me like a shroud, hinting at the secrets held within these walls. Mia was already there, her silhouette framed against the flickering light. She smiled, and for a moment, the weight of the world lifted from my shoulders. We were free, if only for a night. I closed the door behind me, shutting out the noise of our everyday lives. But as I settled onto the worn bed, a sense of unease began to creep in. The room felt alive, its history pressing against my consciousness like a heavy fog. "Are you okay?" Mia asked, her voice soft and concerned. I forced a smile, brushing off the unease. Just tired, I replied, but the truth was that something felt off. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. The old motel had a character of its own, and the flickering lights only added to the unsettling atmosphere that as the evening wore on. We tried to relax, laughing and reminiscing about the moments that had brought us together. But every so often, I would catch a glimpse of movement outside the window, shadows flitting past the drawn curtains. I dismissed it as my imagination, but the feeling of being watched lingered, a gnawing anxiety that tugged at the edges of my mind. Let's order some food, Mia suggested, breaking the silence that had settled between us. I nodded, grateful for the distraction. As she picked up the phone, I glanced around the room, my eyes landing on the cracked mirror above the dresser. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a figure reflected in the glass, but when I turned to look, it was empty. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I was just being paranoid. After ordering, we settled back onto the bed, the tension easing as we talked about everything and nothing. But the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding, and I felt a chill sweep through the room. It was as if the walls were closing in, the shadows growing darker. I glanced at the clock. It was only 8 p.m., but it felt much later. The motel had a way of distorting time, trapping us in its grasp. The food arrived, and we dug in, the comforting familiarity of shared meals easing the tension. But as we ate, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The motel felt like a labyrinth, each corner hiding secrets that I wasn't meant to uncover. I could hear muffled voices in the distance, whispers that seemed to echo through the thin walls, but I brushed them off as part of the motel's charm. After finishing, we decided to watch TV, hoping the flickering screen would distract us from the unsettling atmosphere. Mia curled up beside me, her warmth comforting, but as I turned to kiss her, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. We both jumped, exchanging nervous glances. "What was that?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but my heart raced in my chest. The sound came again, louder this time. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy and deliberate. My stomach twisted in knots as I realized we were not alone. "Maybe it's just someone checking in," I said, but even I could hear the uncertainty in my voice. The atmosphere had shifted, the air thick with tension, and the shadows seemed to stretch and sway, alive with an unseen presence. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a heartbeat. When they returned, I felt a chill race down my spine. I glanced at Mia, but she was staring wide-eyed at the door. "Do you think we should leave?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, torn between the desire to escape and the need to protect the fragile bubble we had created. Just then, the door rattled violently, and I felt my heart skip a beat. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound brave, but my voice trembled. There was no response, just the sound of heavy breathing on the other side. Panic surged through me as I realized that whatever was out there was not friendly. "We need to get out of here," I said, urgency creeping into my voice. As I moved to the door, the rattling stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. I glanced back at Mia, who looked pale and terrified. "What if it's someone dangerous?" she whispered, and for a moment, I felt the weight of her fear settle over me. The walls of the motel felt like they were closing in, trapping us in a nightmare we couldn't escape. That I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the fear that threatened to consume me. "I'll check," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I moved cautiously toward the door, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. As I reached for the handle, a loud bang erupted from outside, shaking the walls. I jumped back, heart racing, and the lights flickered once more. "What's happening?" Mia cried, her voice tinged with panic. I turned to her, my eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling helpless. The shadows seemed to dance around us, closing in, and I could sense a dark energy lurking just beyond our sight. "We need to hide," I said, my mind racing. "We can't let whoever it is find us." We quickly moved to the bathroom, the small space feeling cramped and suffocating. I shut the door quietly, holding my breath as I listened to the chaos unfolding outside. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing closer, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. Whoever was out there was searching for something or someone. Mia clung to me, her body trembling against mine. "What if they come in here?" she whispered, and I shushed her, trying to calm my own racing heart. The darkness felt oppressive, the shadows whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything over the pounding of my heart. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. I held my breath, the silence stretching on. Then, a soft voice, a man's voice, called out, "Mia, are you in there?" My blood ran cold. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It was her boyfriend, the man I had been trying to avoid. "Mia, open the door," he demanded, his tone growing more frantic that I glanced at Mia, who looked pale and terrified. "What do we do?" she whispered, panic rising in her voice. "He can't know I'm here." I felt a wave of dread wash over me as the reality of our situation settled in. I had been caught in a web of deceit, and now the consequences were crashing down around us. "Stay quiet," I said, my voice firm. "We can't let him in." The tension was palpable as we held our breath, the seconds feeling like hours. I could hear him pacing outside, his footsteps heavy with anger. "Mia, please. I just want to talk," he pleaded, but I knew that this wasn't just a conversation. He was furious, and I had become the target of his rage. The seconds stretched into an eternity as we remained hidden in the cramped bathroom, the air thick with tension. The sound of his voice was a haunting reminder of the chaos we had created. I could hear him muttering under his breath, and my heart raced as I felt the weight of the situation bearing down on me. Suddenly, the door rattled violently. "I know you're in there," he shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "Open the door, Mia." The fear coursing through me was palpable, and I could sense the darkness creeping closer, wrapping around us like a suffocating blanket. "What do we do?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "Just stay quiet," I urged, my mind racing. I had to think of a way out of this. The pounding on the door intensified, and I could feel the walls closing in around us. It was a nightmare I couldn't escape, and I realized that the choices we had made had led us to this moment. The shadows were alive, whispering secrets that echoed in my mind. "Open the door," he shouted again, and I felt a surge of panic. "I can't let him find me," Mia cried, her voice breaking. I knew we had to make a choice: face the consequences of our actions, or remain trapped in this suffocating darkness. But as the door rattled again, I felt a sense of inevitability wash over me. "Mia, we have to go out," I said, my voice steady despite my fear. "We can't hide forever." With a deep breath, I prepared myself for the confrontation. "On the count of 3, I said, my heart racing. 1, 2, 3. I flung the door open, revealing the chaos outside. Her boyfriend stood there, eyes wild with anger. But as I stepped into the hallway, I felt the shadows shift. The air grew colder, and I could see the flickering lights overhead. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his gaze shifting between me and Mia. The tension was palpable, the darkness swirling around us, threatening to consume us whole. Before I could respond, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. The whispers grew louder, echoing in the void. "Help us," they called, a chorus of voices that filled the air with dread. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backward, feeling the weight of the darkness pressing in. "Where are you going?" her boyfriend shouted, but the shadows enveloped us, pulling me into their depths. I felt Mia's hand slip from mine as the darkness closed in, and I was consumed by the whispers, the secrets of the motel wrapping around me like a shroud. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night haunted me like a ghost. I tried to piece my life back together, but the shadows lingered, whispering in the corners of my mind. I learned that the motel had a history, a dark past that had swallowed many before me. The echoes of those lost souls seemed to call out, urging me to return. I often found myself looking over my shoulder, haunted by the fear of what I had encountered. The choices I had made pressed heavily on my conscience, and I knew that the darkness I had faced would follow me wherever I went. The whispers of the motel would never fade, a chilling reminder of the night I had tried to escape. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. I encourage you to share your own fears and experiences with the shadows. What lies beyond the veil of our reality? Let's explore these chilling questions together, for the nightmare never truly ends.